Welcome to Source One Live Saturday Late Night Mashup. My name is Nico Lagan. My co-host Jason Lavigne, Jeff Evely, and special guest for today, Michael Yon, Goldie Ghamari, and Canada Poli. How are you guys doing this morning? Hey, it's been a long day. How are you guys doing tonight? Wow.
Well, we're definitely not AI because there's several errors in that intro. So very good. Thanks for establishing that.
Thanks a lot. It's been a long day, man. Ugh. It's late for an old guy. I don't know for you guys, but it's late for me.
Yeah, man. You have a young son. That's why.
Yeah. 2 months old will do that to you. Sleep is optional.
2 months old? Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Congrats. Is he your first?
Thank you. Yep. He's actually right there on the couch sleeping on my... Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
That's fun. You asked us to intro ourselves, so I'll start. I'm Canada Poli. I do an hour-long Canada politics show, and I have done it every day since 2018. I've missed a couple of days here and there, but I post one on New Year's Day. I post one on Christmas Day, so on and so forth. So I just like to talk about politics, and I do it every day. And thanks for inviting me, Nico.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. We'll be talking about politics today. So, Michael Yon.
Hello, I'm Michael Yon. Today I'm in Thailand, and I'm a war correspondent, and I'm on perpetual world tour, let's put it that way, watching crazy people do crazy things.
Goldie?
Crazy world.
Hi, I'm Goldie. I was a Canadian politician for 7 years in the Ontario legislature. I was raising awareness about the threat of radical Islam because I was born in Iran. And radical Islam ruined my birth country, and some groups didn't like that, so they accused the Middle Eastern woman of being Islamophobic, and I was kicked out of caucus. And so now I've decided to raise awareness full time about the threat of radical Islam, and I'm a political commentator and human rights activist. Great to be here.
I think you're going to fit right in. Jeff Evely.
Hey, I'm Jeff Evely. I'm a retired Canadian Armed Forces veteran, 20 years service, Iraq, Afghanistan, all that fun stuff. And I've been doing a bunch of activism since I got out in 2021 and ran in the last federal election as a PPC candidate.
And you took a walk in the woods.
I did. I took a walk in the woods, and that was probably the most memorable thing I've done.
Good job.
4 years. So I've been doing the media blitz over the course of the last month. It's been a hell of a ride, but a lot of fun.
Mr. Lavigne.
Jason Lavigne, host of the Lavigne Show, political commentator, wannabe politician, maybe following Goldie's footsteps one day. Rock the boat quite a bit. I like to stir the pot as well. I have a daily show with my wife, and then I do a bunch of interviews. I'm currently releasing my Alberta Self-Determination series. It's 50 episodes with 50 different voices and 50 different parts of the big puzzle of Alberta Self-Determination. And I like to kind of get out there and be raw and let people speak because I want to learn and listen. So thanks for having us, Nico.
Well, it's your show as much as it is mine, brother. That was our idea. Nico Lagan, political commentator, agitator, I think. People love to hate me. And I'm the host of the Political Orphans. So, yeah, here we are. We have an interesting subject. It's been going on all week. I don't think anything else has happened over the past few days outside of Charlie Kirk's assassination. So how about we just start there? How about we go around the table just to explain what it meant to us? Because my show, The Political Orphans, is probably in existence because of the type of work that Charlie Kirk was doing, interviewing and going on campuses, challenging the youth and encouraging conservative to be conservative, to show them that there's nothing wrong with being a conservative. So my show, Political Orphans, I record with a liberal every single day, and I'm a conservative Christian. So it makes for interesting conversation. And I want to know what you guys think about Charlie Kirk, because no matter how you feel about him, everybody has an opinion. So if we can go around the table and just tell us what he meant to you and what his assassination meant to you as well. Jason, you want to start?
Sure. I haven't formed an opinion yet, to be honest with you. I'm still digesting it. I'm still trying to understand it. I want to walk into this one with my eyes wide open. I've been around the block a few times. The first 48 hours is usually completely changing within a week or two after that, and then years even after that. It's shocking, it's disturbing, it's upsetting, but I'm not sure why yet. I'm starting to hit that stage, Nico, of questioning what's going on, wondering why this happened, who's behind it, are we being told the truth? And I really want to dissect that kind of here tonight. And anytime anybody dies, I'm very, very sad. He was somebody that appeared to be really trying to bridge the gap between multiple sides by talking and listening to anybody. And I think it's kind of going to put things back a little bit as we try to continue to make those kind of advancements and continue the conversations of all sides. And I'm definitely no longer on the left and right spectrum at all. I'm definitely on the up and down spectrum, where I don't believe a lot of the things I'm looking at and seeing. I'm shocked by some of it, and I'm disturbed by most of it. So I'm just looking for truth, and I'm trying to find out what really is going on here. And I don't think we're going to get all those answers tonight, but I think we'll scratch the surface. I'll go ahead and throw it to Jeff next.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't an avid follower of Charlie's, but I definitely appreciated his work. He was spot on, like from what I did see, and how he engaged with people. I think that he was a brilliant guy, had a really bright future ahead of him, and it was amazing what he was able to accomplish just in the time that he had. He co-founded Turning Point, did so many speaking engagements. He was always fearless and intelligent and really inspirational, I think, to a whole generation of young people. I know that I've gotten to work with a lot of the younger guys through my work with the People's Party, the youth wing in particular. And some of the guys, like these guys are like 21, 22, and they've been following Charlie since they were 14. So it's a real loss, I think, for our young people in particular, a lot of young people out there. And I mean, my heart goes out to them. They're coming of age at a time, looking at the world, a world that hates them and wants them dead. That seems like the takeaway here from all of this. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time, that the left is the mob and the mob craves blood. And we've been watching it escalate, I think, for a number of years. And it's really kind of come to a crescendo with this. So my hope, though, is that his death will not be in vain, and this is going to wake up a lot more people, and we'll have a million Charlie Kirks before you know it.
Goldie?
So I didn't know him that well prior to him being assassinated. First of all, I want to give my condolences to his friends and family. It's just, horrible, horrible news. I mean, I followed him. I knew of him. I'd seen some of his videos, and he really didn't seem like a very controversial person to me. So he wasn't really on my radar. He was the guy who liked to talk, right? Like, he was known for going around college campuses and having debates. I mean, how controversial was that? So his assassination came as a huge shock to me. I think it really hit home for me because as a conservative politician and someone who has been very outspoken about particular beliefs, I have received numerous death threats. I continue to receive death threats, and I've always just sort of laughed them off as, it's just part of the job. It's just part of the job. I think that's one of the ways a lot of politicians, especially those of us on the left, those of us on the right, try to downplay the threat from the radical far left. So when that happened, it was just incredibly shocking because he wasn't a politician. He wasn't anything like that. He was just someone who was involved in politics, and he would go around to campuses and he would talk. Like, he was the nice guy on the conservative side. He was the guy that wanted to have those conversations. And the fact that the left, and not just the far left, we're talking about just the mainstream media in general, kept on referring to him as a fascist and a Nazi and dehumanizing him just because of his opinions. And that created the atmosphere that then led to, I believe, the conditions that, where someone assassinated him. That's very scary. And we're seeing more and more of this radical violence coming from the left. And, they claim that they're the party of tolerance and diversity and multiculturalism, and I'll land it here. But in my experience, especially as a politician, the diversity really comes on the right, because when you look at the right, you have a diversity of opinions. And that's, to me, what true diversity is. Whereas on the left, everyone has to think the same. And for them, diversity is only diversity of appearance, which I think is very surface level. So I think things are coming to a head. And I think with this assassination of Charlie Kirk, a lot of people are going to be waking up and realizing how dangerous the left and even the moderate left in the mainstream media have become.
Michael?
Well, let's see. I'm going to say some things that'll be controversial, so let's see if my signal is lost. Seriously, I haven't heard anything controversial so far in the conversation this morning. It's in the morning here, by the way, in Thailand. But I've had personal experience with the groups involved, not with Charlie Kirk. Well, actually, not with him, but with his group, but with the Zionists. Let's get to that. Use that word. Now we're getting controversial. Charlie Kirk did not. He didn't come from out of the blue. He didn't build that giant organization of his own volition, sua sponte, right? He was lofted up by Zionists. This is very obvious. And
listen, if this is gonna turn into a Jewish conspiracy space, I'm out. Like, I'm not gonna tolerate.
Okay, you should leave then. You should leave. You should leave. I don't care. Bye. Have fun. Because if you think Zionism is Judaism,
right, I'm out.
Bye. If you think Zionism is Judaism,
hold on.
If you think Zionism is Judaism, you're not even in the game. You don't even know what's going on, right? And so you can she's probably supported by Zionists, by the way. That was a typical Zionist reaction. Zionism is not Judaism.
No, but hold on, Michael. Hold on. There's no point about attacking people on the panel, though. Like,
I didn't attack her. She attacked me, right? She attacked me. And whenever I get that response, I'm going to say bye. I'm not going to.
But that was not needed. No, but hold on. But that was not needed.
It wasn't needed for her to attack me. I get it. It wasn't needed. It wasn't needed.
No. But hold on.
It wasn't needed for her to. It's not needed for you to attack me. You're interrupting me. I got up early for you. I got up early.
The whole point is to be able to have a conversation between people that don't agree. This is what I do every day.
That's right. And look what just happened. And look what you're doing. I'm trying to talk and you're interrupting me. I'm trying to talk and she's trying to control me.
That's important here.
I'm trying to talk.
No, but hold on, Michael. No, but you're not allowing other people to. You're not being respectful to other people. She didn't deserve you speaking.
I get it. I understand.
No, it's not. No, but it's not about you. You can't play the victim like this.
But I didn't play the victim. Did you notice? Did you notice I didn't play the victim? Did you notice I did not play the victim? I'm not the victim. Professional victims are predators.
And he wasn't
Professional victims are predators.
Okay, let's move on, Michael, because you were establishing your foundation, which is important because it's not about Judaism. It's not about the Jewish people at all. I wish you would have heard that part.
Not at all. But she reacted as Zionists do, and people who are supported by Zionists do. In any case, I think we see this as not a free speech environment. So why don't you guys have a good day? I got up early for you, but I got a lot of stuff to do, and y'all have a fun time.
Wow. I'm
interesting.
Disappointed in that one.
You know what, guys? If it's because of me, my apologies. But the whole point of this show is to try to have but it's just I just want to put it out there. The whole point is to have a civil conversation. Like, I'm all for people disagreeing. I want people to disagree. That's the whole point. Every single piece of content that I ever done over the past 5 years is to create that civil discourse, but there's no point about calling people's name. Like that's just like, there's no point for attacking
He
like
didn't
we're
call
what.
anybody name.
No, but he wasn't the most respectful, and she shouldn't have left either. Like, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying there's a certain framework. I might not agree with you, Jason, and we've recorded enough content to know that you and I don't agree on everything. I've called you out on stuff, and you've called me out on stuff. Just last week, Jeff told and proved that I was wrong on this show, saying that you don't want the government to be able to have the death penalty.
You're muted or something.
No, he's good. He's talking.
That's good.
So all I'm saying is I'm all for the open debate, but I don't like I don't like people calling others name, because you can't call me a Zionist because I'm not supported by anybody. I don't support any of this stuff either. I'm just speaking about what I believe in. But at the same time, there's no point, like 15 minutes in and we lost 2 guests. So
Well,
if it's my fault, I'll take the blame for that one. If it's my bad, I'll take it on the chin.
It's not, Nico, and
I don't think it's you.
think
I don't think it's
Charlie
Nico.
Kirk would have said that where the conversation starts, that's where the violence seeps in. So
Right. It was
I
unfortunate.
vehemently disagree with everything that guy was saying, but I was just waiting for him to finish.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he didn't get to lay down what he talks about. The word Zionism was enough to just throw it all off the rails. And that's unfortunate, because he doesn't talk about Zionism in that it's a Jewish thing at all. Like, this is what I was waiting for. He actually has a very different approach to it. It's a very high level thing. It's unfortunate because he does do a lot of good work. He is a good journalist. So it's unfortunate. The back and forth there. I wish there was no interruption and he was able to finish, and then we go to the next person and continue the conversation. But on that, let's go ahead and go to Canada Poli. I don't know if you can hear us though. Can you hear us, Mark? Because he couldn't hear before.
Because I can hear him click though.
Yeah,
like
we're all
I can,
good. It's just I don't think he can hear us. Is he even moving anymore? He may have lost his internet.
No, is there? Can you not hear him click? I can hear him click in the background.
Oh, he's moving for me now.
Yep.
Mark, can you hear us? No. Can you contact him?
Yeah, I'm texting him right now.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry about that, Nico. Certainly, I thought it was going to be a good conversation with multiple views, and that's unfortunate.
Oh, you have no reasons to apologize whatsoever. It's I just, at the end of the day, it's
Mark,
all about
hear us now?
respecting others.
You're not going to get that with that kind of radicalism. That is the purpose, actually, of that particular foreign-funded PSYOP, all the anti-Zionist stuff. It is to radicalize people for the purpose of dividing the right, and that's what happened. We brought in a few right-wingers, yeah, I mean, we saw what happened.
The thing is
I don't think he is that though, there, Jeff. I'm not sure if you've seen his stuff before.
Pretty sure he is.
Okay.
all I was going to say is that there's ways, there's ways to stay out of it. Like I've seen some of the videos that Charlie Kirk has posted recently where he was calling out Israel, although he's been a massive supporter of Israel over the years. But I don't touch that one because at the end of the day, I want to speak about, at least I wanted to approach what Charlie Kirk meant to the young generation of conservative boys out there that's been told now for the first time in like 4 or 5 years that it was okay to be a conservative, which I did not have that growing up. I wonder where I would be today if somebody would have told me that in my 20s. So
I know. And one thing I would point out, though, is just how he went right to that, and he went after it so hard, even when we were just kind of doing like these introductions and trying to say something nice about Charlie Kirk. I think that's an indication of radicalization.
Yeah, there's something weird about that. Yeah, I can hear you guys now. Sorry.
Okay, that's what it is. That's why it's so strange.
In the middle of Nico talking there, he just went silent, and I thought he randomly muted himself. So apologies, Nico. I wasn't trying to talk over you, and then for whatever reason, I couldn't get my sound back. So sorry, I left and came back.
Don't worry about it. No worries, man.
So yeah, that was weird. That's unfortunate that Goldie left. Not so unfortunate that Michael left, because he didn't. I have to agree. Like it was a weird left turn right away. Like it didn't seem like he wanted to have any kind of discord with Goldie. Just getting back to what we were talking about, if you guys don't mind, Jason, you said that you feel like you don't really believe everything we're being told about Charlie Kirk, and I agree with you. I've seen a bunch of Charlie Kirk things, but I wasn't an avid viewer. I watched more documentary, and I've seen the short clips of him destroying people here and there with logic and reason, and I thought, yeah, this guy's pretty good. But then, so I didn't do any kind of deep dives or anything like that into Charlie Kirk until really after he had been assassinated, and people were putting up choice clips and things like that. But it's super interesting because after he's passed, it seems like there was a whole bunch of pressure from, and I mean, not to circle back to what we were talking about, but it does seem like it looks like a professional hit where they're saying it's a lone gunman, but it doesn't seem like a lone gunman who worked alone. It looks like there was a team who were there supporting him with patsies who are willing to say they did it and to slow down the law enforcement, spotters, and like all sorts of signals and things like that. So there's a lot of questions. And I think how either this guy was getting powerful enough that he was a real threat to anybody he targeted, right? And if they thought maybe he was going to threaten them, take him out, but that doesn't really fit. And I've heard that there were issues with him questioning. Welcome back, Goldie. No, we're not getting into why you left. No, but I'm just saying
we can. I'm okay with that, but I just don't get it.
Yeah, no. Well, there's rumors that Israel was offering, like he said, Charlie Kirk apparently, and this is rumor. I don't know. I've just read it on X today, but Charlie Kirk apparently didn't want to take any funding from Netanyahu and was questioning Israel in a way that the controllers found uncomfortable, and so that was the reason he was assassinated. And again, I don't know if that fits, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know I do Canadian politics with kind of a little touch of American and world politics here and there. So I don't know the ins and outs of Turning Point USA, but I find it really, really interesting, kind of more globally, what's going on with the Gaza, Palestine, Israel thing, and Trump and all of the related stuff. And then if big voices who were formerly pro-Israel start asking questions, now maybe it starts to make sense. But at the same time, I don't think this was a lone gunman. I'm horrified for the family. I can't believe those kids have to grow up without a dad. I'm sure they'll be okay, but it's just one of those things that's completely life-changing. That they were on one trajectory, the kids, and now they're on a completely different trajectory because that guy's not there. And so I think about that, and I also think about like what's happening here that I don't know, right? So what are the details that I'm unaware of, and the impact he seems to have. It seems to be amplified now, but we'll see in 6 months or a year, right? Everybody's saying Turning Point USA is not going anywhere, and we're going to be stronger than ever, and he didn't die in vain. I hope that's true. I hope that they're able to harness this kind of outpouring into something that's productive. So yeah, it's one wild situation, that's for sure. But I feel like we're in the fog of war, similar to after JFK was shot and nobody knew anything real firm. Everybody was just talking about speculation. I think it feels a little bit like that. What I would think that felt like.
Jeff, seems like you have something to say.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff around Israel. Well, first of all, I think it's noteworthy that we know that it's being driven by foreign-funded bot farms, namely China, Russian, Iranian, and the Pakistanis are getting in on the action as well.
Qataris. It's the Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood that are funding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all coming through Muslim Brotherhood and communist organizations, and that's what we're up against. Those are the axis powers, essentially.
So I understand. Sorry, Jeff, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that blaming Israel is coming through from Chinese and Russian and Qatari.
Absolutely. It's being amplified. Yes, it's being amplified by adversarial bot farms. NCRI, the Network Contagion Research Institute, published a report on it, and they got all the Google Analytics there to show you false flag narratives are exactly the kind of thing that Russians absolutely muckle onto in particular, and have been since the early 2010s at the very least. This is the kind of thing that our adversaries would want us to think when they're attacking us, is that it's our own side doing it to us to make up excuses to go to war, to make money. And of course, like, none of that is really true. There was war well before there was money. As a matter of fact, it was a global bloodbath before money ever existed. And there are fewer wars with lower casualty rates than ever before, while meanwhile there is more currency, more banks, and more bankers in the world than there's ever been. So there's an inverse correlation between wealth and casualty rates and numbers of wars. It's all bunk. They will muckle onto these narratives to drive wedges. The one around the Israeli control over the United States in particular is being amplified for the purpose of dividing the right wing. Hence the woke right. I don't really think we have a woke right. I think we have a bunch of snowflake millennials who self-identify as right wing. A lot of people were against the mandates on the left, and so they're finding the right now and dragging a lot of Marxist baggage with them. Hence the cancel culture and the woke outrage mobs and the triggering and the snowflakery that we kind of see on the right now. I mean, just the fact that they're amplifying those, I think is enough for me. And I've already kind of been down all these rabbit holes, because it seems like this is everywhere. You can't go anywhere, say anything without coming into this these days. And it's all pretty easily falsifiable. And in the case of this one, just for this one, we'll say that there's no need to really go after the finances and stuff like this. Essentially, it's a violation of Occam's razor. There's a much simpler explanation available. And good job me. I called it last week. I said it was radicalism. With the level of radicalism that we have right now, I have no reason to even suspect that a professional was involved. A lot of people were saying it's a 200-meter shot and it's a crack shot and all this. 200 meters is like a sighting range. A lot of people will sight their rifles from 200 meters. So that's not a long shot by any stretch.
Jeff, can I ask you a question about that, actually?
Sure.
So, I mean, I also heard that Charlie Kirk's assassin kind of grew up in like a hunting family. So he basically grew up with like rifles and stuff. So, I mean, I'm not a hunter, but is 200 meters something that, I guess, if you grew up hunting, would that be like a shot you could easily make?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
200 meters is not a long distance for a rifle. He was firing a 30-06.
I heard the opposite. He didn't grow up in a hunting family. Like, this is, I saw multiple memes talking about, and like multiple ex posts talking about how this guy's not a hunter, not in a hunter family. Yes, they were Republican, but they weren't a hunting family, as far as I understand.
Father was a sheriff.
But
At
No, but
the end
hold
of
on,
the day, it doesn't really matter. He had a scope.
No.
Okay, and a scope really makes
Yeah.
things a lot easier. And
Yeah.
200 yards is not a long shot.
I agree. 200
No,
yards is not a long shot. Yeah, I agree there.
200
I'm
meters.
just saying, or 200,
just 200 meters.
200 meters, not 200 yards.
It might even be less than
Well,
that.
I think it is. They're reporting it as
I think it's
200
yards.
200 meters.
Yards, okay.
I think it's yards. Yeah.
Anyways, Jeff, you want to finish up? Because I think we all agree it's not a very difficult shot for anybody.
No, it's not a difficult shot. And they have really, like, Crowder was already reporting that he had engravings on his casings, on the bullet casings, the spent ones, or the one in the chamber, the ones in the magazine, and the spent one as well, where he had engraved these different, like, obviously left-wing radical slogans. The Notice is Bulge, OWO, is actually a furries meme. And his partner was a transgender furry, just based on the fact that Charlie's a prominent conservative, that's enough for a radical to go after him. I don't think a foreign state would go after him just for being prominent in the movement. He's not a high value target by any stretch of the imagination. So they will go after like political leaders and military targets and stuff like that. But just a culture warrior like Charlie Kirk, I can't see it. That's a real stretch. And all the other engravings, like there were gamer community stuff.
The thing to remember, though, Jeff, is if you look at Charlie Kirk, he was the perfect target. If you think about it, like he's the perfect martyr to split the left and the right, because he was common sense. Like how many people on the left that I know that will agree with most of the stuff that Charlie Kirk said? He was not an extremist by any stretch of the imagination. So having a guy like him, you can turn him into a martyr. If you want to, like the right can easily turn this guy in a martyr, because he was about as common sense as they can be. And he just turned 33. He's 31. He would be 35 almost at the next election. So you know that a guy like Charlie Kirk could have become president within the next 10 years. Like J.D. Vance is going to be the next president. No questions about that. But Trump's done. J.D. Vance is next. He'll probably do 1 term, maybe 2.
I don't know.
Who would have been perfect? Hold on. Who would have been perfect for a VP spot under J.D. Vance next election? Like a guy like Charlie Kirk, or maybe he would have been too young. I think it's 35, if I'm not mistaken, in the US. But all to say that as much as he's not political right now, as he's not a political figure per se, he's not in politics, he talks about it, he was the perfect martyr, but he could have become the next president.
But are you saying that he's the perfect martyr, therefore cui bono, therefore the right assassinated him to make a martyr out of him to get more momentum? Or
I don't think so.
Whoever assassinated him, I can't tell. I can tell you what I think, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's the right or the left. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, you can go back to The Prince by Machiavelli, and the best way to control a population is to split them in 2. That's what I mean by he's the perfect martyr. It's very easy for people to defend Charlie Kirk because he was common sense, right?
But Nico, do you think that the population is actually being split in 2? Because I'm looking at what's happening online right now, and if anything, it seems like the population is uniting. I'm seeing, for just as many videos, horrific videos of people who are out there celebrating his assassination, I'm seeing an equal number of videos of people who were either on the left or who were moderates or swing voters who have said that we're never voting Democrat again and we are voting Republican from now on. So if this was supposed to be a way to maybe divide the population, I think it backfired completely. And I think instead what's happening is people are uniting because this is a high-profile political assassination. And even people who were not involved in politics are now, they were like looking elsewhere. Everyone is now like laser focused on this, and people are trying to understand why was Charlie Kirk assassinated. And the more people look into him, the more they realize he was an all-around good guy. He was a father. He had 2 kids. He was a Christian, values-based. He acted on his values in his faith, and he basically said to people, do good. There was nothing bad about him. And just because, some people might disagree with some of his perspectives, that's no justification to assassinate him. But that's what the regular average person, not just American, but person around the world is seeing right now. They're seeing this hardcore, militarized, radical left who claims to be the party of tolerance, and yet they could not tolerate his words, so they assassinated him. So I think this is going to backfire completely on the Democrats. This is going to backfire completely on the left. People are waking up, and I think this is going to unite people more than anyone thought. That's sort of the way that I see it playing out. I don't know if you guys agree.
So Goldie, do you think the division, because there is a division, but the division might be of the left itself. So the radical extreme left is dividing from the non-radical extreme left. And they're kind of moving away from that extremism. So I've certainly seen the same thing that you're talking about there. I've seen a lot of people that said, look, I was Democrat, I'm now Republican. I was for this stuff until you did that. I'm seeing a lot of that too. And what I'm not seeing, even though the media has tried, I'm not seeing a retaliation type of mindset on the right at all. I'm seeing vigils. I'm seeing people that are just sad. When this happened, at the end of the stream we did, the day it happened, my call out to people was to go hug a liberal, because everybody's going to be sad about this and we need to come together. And I think that's exactly what's happened. But at least on the liberal side or left side, the radical left, extreme radical left, and the rest are splitting. There's a split there now, a wide gap is happening.
100%. You're seeing a split between sort of the regular, moderate, normal people on the left, more the centrists, which, their policies and their ideology is not necessarily that much different than people on the center right, right? Which is sort of where I am. You're seeing a split between them versus the hardcore radical left, your communists, your socialists, your Marxists, your Antifas, right? And so people on the left who would normally, sort of tolerate that behavior are now realizing, that this is not acceptable. This is not appropriate. This is not normal. We do not cheer the assassination of a person just because we did not agree with all of his views. And I think people are waking up to the fact that there is a domestic terrorism problem within the left, something that they have denied for a very long time.
So what I was trying to say, Goldie, is as simple as I believe the goal, whoever did it, was to divide. But this
100%.
Cornelius, the centurion, is hitting it on the head. They wanted to radicalize both sides. Whether it's working is a different question. And that was my point, because just like Jason, when we recorded that live on Charlie Kirk's death, we were saying, don't do it. It's always the job of the right to be the cooler head, to be the adult in the room. And we all know that I'm a Christian, and I know that as a Christian, there's no way Charlie Kirk would have prone violence. He wouldn't have. So, but the point is, would it work or not? Because you can see on the left, there's people like Rachel Gilmore, for example. There's host David Cochran on CBC. You got people like, what's her name? The Manitoba Families Minister, Nahani Fontaine, that is just feeding it and feeding it and feeding it and feeding it and trying to split. And I agree with you that I've seen so many great videos coming from the right, like prayers. Like I've seen some videos where I had a tear to my eye and just, damn, this is the way we're supposed to respond to it. But I think the goal was to further divide. Now, is it working or not? I don't know, but I'm not seeing any violence coming from the right. That's for damn sure.
I mean, Mark... remember, Nico, like when is it that stores have to like board up, right? Whenever like there's, an event that happens, whenever the stores have to like board up their doors or windows, or whenever you see like riots or burnings or, people burning the American flag, or even the Canadian flag, it's always coming from the radical left. It's always coming from the same groups. It's coming from the communists, the socialists, the Marxists, the Islamists, the, pro-Palestine people, because they all converge around this, anti-imperialism ideology where they want to destabilize the West, and they will latch on to anything in order to do that. But Charlie Kirk was such a huge, huge figure within the United States, and we did not see a single store boarding up their windows, people preparing for, riots, nothing like that. All we've seen is people get together in prayer and to honor Charlie Kirk's memory, because that's what the right really stands for. And I think that's what people are realizing, especially people who are more moderate or centrist, and that's what's making them come over. Because the Overton window, it used to be like this was right and this was left. Well, the right hasn't changed, but the left is like way over there now, right? So the left is way over here. So now all of a sudden, what used to be center is pushed back, because the left has gotten so radical that even like moderate people can't even like empathize with them anymore or even understand them.
I think it's more galvanizing than it is. I think it's more galvanizing than it is dividing. Like it's dividing the radicals from the rest of us. So I think all of the kind of regular, sensible people are galvanizing around this recognition of the fact that we have a very serious problem with radicalization in our own society.
I think most people don't see it though. I think that fundamentally we had a protest at Christie Pitts today, right? Today's September 13th. Nico, you tweeted about it. I'm going to use your tweet on my show tomorrow. And like the Antifa types showed up in force enough to kettle the people who were showing up to protest and protest against mass migration and all that. And so the Antifa guys and gals and whatever else showed up with, all their Antifa stuff. And it's Goldie, you were talking about how the pro-Palestinian and like just kind of naming off movements and stuff. And I often on my show, I go all the way back to, do you remember when people were blocking trains and putting burning debris on train tracks and nobody was getting arrested? It's the NGOs. That protest turned into the Black Lives Matter protest. The Black Lives Matter protest morphed into kind of the trans thing, and then it morphed again into the pro-Palestinian protest. They've been untouchable. If you do something like that, put burning debris on train tracks, you don't get arrested. They say, we don't know what we could possibly do. They're allowed to protest. And I think that it's even more sinister than that. The government, I think, are through NGOs or through some mechanism that's dark, are somehow funding this, and that's why they're allowed to continue. And I think that rational people look at Charlie Kirk and do what you were describing, Goldie, talking about moderate and kind of try and look for that common ground, right? But as I said, I think that there's a group of people that looks at that and they looks at that Charlie Kirk situation and tries to take as much advantage out of that as possible to drive their ideology forward. And so while we're looking for common ground, there are people, and you can see this in the 2012 G20 in Toronto. There were protests, and Canadians don't protest in that time in a violent way, but there were people who were flown in, they were wearing black, and they were there to instigate the crowds. And so we get pushed in that direction because bad actors are allowed to operate. And so like, I worry that this ride's just getting going. Like we're not even close to the end. We're just maybe at the top of the first big drop, right? And so I hope I'm wrong about that, but my gosh, things don't seem. There's one more thing. I have to go. I thought this was going from 8 until 10. So I'm and like this is fun, but I'm gonna be asleep at 10:30. So Bex on X did a docu-series talking about where this terrorism is coming from, the group of people, because I think that you can radicalize students, but those radical students at the universities that are being radicalized by their professors, they're not going to risk their future by getting a gun and shooting somebody like Charlie Kirk. You need another layer of radicalization. And Bex on X did a 5-part series. It's tagged, it's pinned on her X profile, which is BX_on_X, or you can look her up on Substack, and she's got the same one there if for whatever reason it doesn't work. And she goes through how, because Jeff, you were talking about how there was transgender ideology written on the bullets and things and the gun. So she goes through how all of that fits together. And there is a way that puzzle does fit together, and she's done a brilliant job putting together. So if you have time, go check that out. But it's, to me, I'm gobsmacked by that level of evil operating. Like I said on my show, it's the scariest I like documentaries and I listen to them a lot. It's the scariest docu-series I've seen in the last 5 years, and I don't watch scary things. And like I'm blown away at it.
I'll check it out, but if I could just give you the nexus before you go, like the Chinese Communist Party bought Tencent, and that's the biggest gaming company in the entire world, and they just go around gobbling up all the other companies as they go tits up. Mm-hmm. And yep. That's what they've been doing, is they've been going into like Discord servers, and they're putting a lot of the DEI stuff in the gaming as well. Yep. Yep. And yeah, a lot of this radicalization is taking place within the gaming community, and I would say that that's evidenced by another one of the etchings on the bullet casing, which was the upright down. You know, that's the nuke code, or the 500 kilogram bomb code in what is it, Helldivers 2. So yeah, I mean, he's a gamer, right? He's clearly a gamer, and he's clearly into trans ideology, and he's shacked up with a furry transgender. So yeah, I mean, that's how it all fits together, really.
Yeah,
but like, back to China.
But her docuseries fills in the blanks, like fills in why, and fills in not necessarily why, but honestly, you should go check it out. It really does. And like what you're saying is certainly another piece of the puzzle, but she does address that, and it's it's super interesting. It adds another layer that I didn't expect, honestly.
Can you throw a link into the private chat so we can go
Oh,
ahead
sure.
and check
Yeah,
it
yeah.
out?
Sorry. Yeah, I will.
And I think on the common ground side of things, how do we feel about this updated
I saw that.
meme?
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was referring to when I was like, it's gone way further off the map. That's exactly the meme I was referring to.
yeah, because I think we can agree on this. We definitely are seeing this in 2025. Now, do we think that this will be because of this event? It kind of didn't work out the way like. Here's the thing that I'm starting to come around. Right, the more I digest this stuff is because I just learned just before the show that he had a partner who's a male transitioning to a female.
Yep.
Because I was wondering, why would this guy do it? Well, he thought he was protecting his partner. He was being erased. The media says we're erasing Trump's erasing these people. Charlie's part of that. So maybe that was just all that was needed, along with everything else before that. But that last little piece of the puzzle was he didn't want his partner to be erased by people like Charlie Kirk. Is that enough, Jeff, under the fourth turning to kind of get us close to that? What you call the climax of it? Like, are these, because this last time we talked about this didn't happen, and now this happened. Are we getting close to that climax that you're talking about in the fourth turning?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It's this year. I don't know how much. Okay, I'll try. So this year is I think the year that the fourth turning climaxes. It's been 81 years since D-Day. 81 years before that was Gettysburg, and 82 years before that was the colonial triumph at Yorktown. Climactic battle of the American Revolution. And so this is the year. I mean, we've been in the fourth turning since 2008. That was the catalyst. The global financial collapse, full-blown crisis hit it in 2020, just like Neil Howe said it would, 2020 plus or minus 2 years. And he said that in 1991. And then we approach ekpyrosis, or the climax. And like I said, it's on a pretty tight timeline relative to the other climaxes. So this is the year that it happens. This could be the start of it. It's going to get really bad for a few years, but we should come back out in about 2030, 2032. We'll be on the way back up again in a big way. And assuming we don't fall to tyranny and there's something left to rebuild with, but I think we're doing okay. But as far as the radicalization piece and how that ties into it, well, the gender roles are always at their narrowest in a fourth turning. They're at their widest in the first turning. So that would be, the GI Jenners with the stay-at-home moms and breadwinners. And then they narrow with, the hippie generation growing their hair, men growing their hair out long. My generation, I got my ear pierced when I was 9. And in the fourth turning, they're at their narrowest. So that's why we're seeing a lot like this particular phenomenon with the gender ideology and stuff like that. And I think it was actually 82 years before the Sarnak brothers came out as transgender, that we had the first biomedical transition performed in the Weimar Republic by not Volkmar Segush, but the other guy, Magnus Hirschfeld. The first biomedical transition was like just right on time with the coming out of the Sarnak brothers. So yeah, this is another part of the cycle of history, that component of it. The polarization is really another one of it. I don't know if radicalization is the right word, but definitely polarization. It's all the factions that were formed during the second turning, like third wave feminism that has metastasized into full-blown gender ideology, going to war with other factions that were formed, well, mostly just the right wing. So yeah, I mean it's all related, but these are like social phenomena. It's not really that there's a mastermind behind any of it. There is some of that happening, but like in real life, masterminds don't really exist. People are generally incompetent, and they don't pull off conspiracies. That's the big reason why I just don't. Somebody's
been able to get all of the Western countries to lock down their entirely healthy populations and lie about the flu in 2020. Somebody's pulling the strings, buddy. You're not going to convince me one iota, not even a little tiny bit. But there's not. Yeah, well, there's somebody pulling the strings. there's somebody pulling the strings. There's no way that there's not, because there's no way. There's just no way. I don't believe it.
There is, because it's always tyranny in the fourth turning, because we have the most tyrannical generation.
But the governments are acting on somebody's orders. They're not doing this because the population wants them to do this. They're acting on somebody's orders. That's somebody who I wonder who that is, but I don't know.
This is going to be a very interesting conversation, because I've had that conversation with Jeff many times, because I agree with you, Mark, that I believe that there's people behind the scene pulling the strings. But let me ask you guys a question, because this is, as you guys were talking since the beginning of the show, there's a question that came to mind, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the subject of the day outside that it came from there. But considering what's going on with Israel, Zionists, and how divisive that whole subject is, do you think that it's possible for people in North America to concentrate on what's happening here instead of always being looking to outside forces in the Middle East, or even just outside of the country? Because every single day I could give my opinion on what's going on with Israel and Palestine and the Middle East, and I don't really give a fuck. Personally, I can't change anything. This has been going on for so long. I'm more focused on making sure that North America, because I spend half my time in the US, half in Canada, can get to a better place. Do you think it's possible for us to kind of remove that part and concentrate on what's going on in Canada? We see you, Mark. You can go since you have to leave.
I was just going to say,
you can go.
I want to
it's
clarify.
okay.
I didn't want anybody jumping in. I was like, I want to clarify. So like, when you say, can we focus on Canada? I'd love to focus on Canada. I often I lament on my show that we should focus on Canada rather than trying to police the world, Ukraine, or like any of the other conflicts. I don't think that Canada, we don't have a say, so we shouldn't say. And so like, I think also it's very, very politically convenient for people who don't have a say in other countries to strongly come out and say to Canadians, Slava Ukraine. It's like, well, great, but that doesn't mean anything to me. That doesn't fix my potholes. That doesn't fix the corruption that I can plainly see. That doesn't make the billions you're sending outside of the country help the people who can't buy a house here. That doesn't make my grocery bills go any lower, but it's very politically convenient, right? And so if they say this travesty is happening in the world and us Canadians have to fix it, all of a sudden they've got to get out of jail free card to not talk about domestic issues, because domestic issues, you could say, listen, 6 months ago you said X, Mr. Carney, and 6 months later nothing has happened. And so you can have a measuring stick to say you made a promise and you didn't effing well do anything about the promise. But if you start saying we have to win this war, Slava Ukraini, well, like, I'm not expecting Pierre Poilievre to be at the front lines of that war. How could he possibly be? He can't impact that war. It's very convenient for him to say all sorts of nice things and go to Ukrainian, rallies and stuff. But it's this cop out. He's not actually. I don't think we should be focusing on it. I don't think we should be funding it. I think that we should say, listen, we don't want any more deaths or anything like that. So we're going to stop funding all the deaths, and we hope you find a way to make peace. Fingers crossed. And like, then we have to focus on domestic issues, and we should focus on domestic issues. But it's very difficult to talk about domestic issues and fix them because the politicians want to leave. And the other part of it is what we were just talking about. I think that there's a supranational, like the United Nations, like the WHO, but I think it's probably controlled by, I think it's controlled by a small group of people, under 300 people, maybe as little as 12. I don't know. But I feel like there's a group of people who are running things, and they're international. So I'd like to protect our government from Chinese infiltration for voting and for our politics, like Han-Dong, for example, but not limited to just Han-Dong. I'd like our politicians to protect us from infiltration of international cabals that want to steal our infrastructure and our wealth through like our lumber and our water and our oil and all of the things that make this a really rich country. I want our politicians to look abroad to protect us against that, but I don't want them to wage foreign wars for their freedom, comrade. Like, that's not it. And I feel like that's all we're being offered. And so that's what I feel about it. So, and I thank you for inviting me on, Nico. I appreciate it. And everybody else. It's been nice chatting with you guys.
Hopefully you still have like 7 minutes or so there, Mark.
Yeah, I'm not leaving right now. I just don't want to be rude.
Nico, to kind of also answer your question, like, is there a way to kind of get back to business and focus on what we need to do here in Alberta? We're doing that. We're absolutely doing that because we're looking at possibly a referendum on separation. And to tie it all together with Charlie Kirk as well, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring up one of his videos on this particular subject, where he kind of supported independent Alberta. So if you don't mind, I'll play just a couple moments of this.
Go ahead, man.
Mark,
Go for it.
Canada's a real problem, man. I mean, because you have, I would basically allow Alberta to become its own country.
I lived in Alberta too, so
yeah, Edmonton or
Calgary.
Yeah, the two best parts of Canada are Edmonton and Calgary. Beautiful country too. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Canada's a really screwed up country, and it's a self-hating country, as you well know, that prides itself on being polite. And this is a great lesson for those of us in the West, that your favorable characteristics of being polite, nice, and welcoming can also be your downfall. And you know that in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Super polite. Okay, we're just going to allow a bunch of foreigners over on our country. Super polite. We're not going to allow anyone. We're not going to have free speech. Canada's got a big problem. It does not have this, the Constitution. So you do not have robust free speech protections. You do not have Second Amendment protections. So the government is able to do whatever they want. I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister of Canada. I wouldn't last very long. But between Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, you have some of the most liberal cities on the planet, as you well know. Canada, I think, is bringing in like half of its population in the next decade in immigrants. It's just not sustainable.
I know.
And it's too bad. It was a once great country. Canada has.
Pretty interesting comments there, because I think a lot of people do agree with that for the most part. It kind of shows how intelligent he was, how abreast of what was going on. Because I don't disagree with anything he said there. But to answer your question, Nico, at least in Alberta and other parts of Canada, we are focusing on issues like that and maybe disconnecting from the global system or even the Canadian system at this stage. Goldie, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree on the immigration part, and I say that as an immigrant. My parents immigrated to Canada in 1986. I was a year old, so I mean, technically, I am a first-generation immigrant. But my family immigrated the right way. They immigrated because they escaped an Islamic dictatorship and wanted to come to a Judeo-Christian country and raise their family with within that value system. And my father. He still proudly flies a Canadian flag outside of the house. So immigration has to be done properly, has to be done the right way. What we've seen in the last 10 years is unprecedented mass immigration, where people are just being brought in, and they're not being brought in with the intent of assimilating them into society. They're being brought in, and they're not really like they're segregated. And then they're coming in and they're bringing their own values, they're bringing their own baggage. And, Justin Trudeau even said Canada has become a post-national state. What does that mean? When you get rid of your Canadian identity, you are opening the door to bring in foreign ideology in order to corrupt the system. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. That's exactly what we saw at Christie Pitts today, where you have Canadian patriots waving the Canadian flag in their own country, and yet they are being booed by Antifa. They're being booed by the pro-Palestine people wearing keffiyehs. Like, not a single person within the woke far left group was holding a Canadian flag. They were holding every single foreign flag you could think of, but not a single one of them were waving the Canadian flag. And that is a serious problem. And we need to look at that, and we need to call it out. Unfortunately, when we want to talk about it, the far left, and not even the far left, even the media will silence us by accusing us of being xenophobic or racist or whatever the case might be. I have been accused of being a white nationalist so many times that I've lost count. Do I look like a white nationalist to you?
You're what we call white enough.
White enough, right? Like according to the left, I'm white enough because that gives them the permission to then attack me, right? Because they do not want to hear from people with lived experience who, might not necessarily, because the left hates me and people like me because I tick off all the boxes that fits into their DEI narrative, and yet I'm a conservative on the right, and they don't like that. So to me, to them, I'm one of their biggest threats, and that's why they're constantly trying to attack me, because they don't want to hear the truth.
But
Goldie,
when we go back,
Yeah, Goldie
I
was
just-
saying I get called a white supremacist and a race traitor all at the same time. So
How?
I have a
There you
wife
go.
who's Nigerian born Lebanese descent. And
Oh, jeez.
you know, I
There you
get
go.
called a lot of things around here for sure. Sorry, Nico, you were gonna say?
I just want to see what Goldie thinks about the question I asked, because one of the things that always comes back, no matter the subject I bring up, is Israel and Zionists. And I don't touch that one with a 10-foot pole. I really don't. I don't touch, because at the end of the day, I can't change anything, and I don't believe that they're controlling everything. I don't believe that they're the ones that are messing up the whole world. So to me, I want to concentrate on North America. This is my goal, is to try to avoid what's going on in the West, especially in Europe, to happen here. I want to stop immigrants from coming over that don't share values, that want to change our country to what theirs were. But the irony is that they left their country to come here. So I want to avoid that. I want to go back to a place where our government spent money in places that make sense, that 1 out of 4 Canadian wasn't struggling to afford daily necessities as per the food bank. I want to go back to a place where one family, one parent could, like the father could work, afford a house, 2 cars, the wife could stay home with the kids if they choose to do so. This is what I want to go back to. But it seems that every single time I bring up solutions, it's the Zionists. It's because of Palestine. It's because of whatever's going on in Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East. And I'm really fed up with it. I'm fed up that we blame all our problems to what's going on overseas instead of focusing on what's going on here. And I'm just curious to know if, Goldie, you think it's possible to go back to
let's
just
give Mark
caring
last
about
word.
Canada. Yeah. Well, I want to know all of your opinions, actually.
Let's let Mark answer that one because he's got to run. He's going to turn into a pumpkin soon.
I do. I'm going to fall asleep. It's ridiculous, man. Usually I have a little nap before bed. So happy Charlie Kirk. One of the things that Charlie Kirk said, and I watched the clip today or yesterday or something like that, was basically happy people don't revolt. So the invasion that you're talking about, Nico, what's going on with people not being able to afford a house and not being able to afford groceries and like all of that stuff seems very domestic. They are invading our country to destabilize our country in order that we ourselves initiate the revolution they want to initiate. They want a communist revolution, but they want us to do it. And so they're going to create the circumstances by which a communist revolution becomes what the people do. Does that make sense? And so that's why it won't happen. By it, I mean, they're not going to stop unless we make them stop. And I don't know, the political will to do that is very, very difficult. Alberta's separatism and potential for independence and all that is probably the best shot in Canada. And man, I think they're going to try and they're going to screw you out of it. And I hope I'm wrong about that. I want you to be successful, Alberta. I do, but it's one of those things. But fundamentally, that's why they will not stop, because they want to destabilize our society in order to achieve their goal of getting this revolution or whatever.
Thanks, Mark.
But I'm going to go.
And make sure
Thanks,
you put
buddy.
this on in the background so you catch the rest of this, okay?
For real. Thanks so much. It's been lovely chatting with you all. Have a wonderful night, guys. And
Same to you, man.
Goldie as well. Good night.
Jeff, let's jump to you on this one, because what Mark was laying out there was a potential provoking of some sort of revolution or something in the streets or something like that. Could that be the final pieces of the climax that you're talking about this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And this all harkens back to the 5th century with the supreme art of war, the Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Basically the goal is to drive us to civil war, to weaken us from within. Even in The Art of War, he discusses, especially in chapter 13, the use of spies. And he describes 4 different types of spies and says when they're all working in conjunction with one another, he calls the divine manipulation of the threads. And what he talks about is basically capturing the elites. You pit the state against the people turn against the state, pit all the different ethnicities and religious groups off of one another, and we'll be too busy at each other's throats to really notice what's going on, with that man behind the curtain. And yeah, we'll basically implode on our own. and then they can come in and impose whatever solution they deem fit, because we're clearly incapable of governing ourselves. And that is a cultural staple in Chinese thinking. And another one that is a bit of a staple actually goes back to around the same period. They play Go, whereas we play chess. And Go is actually much more complex than chess. In chess, it's about capturing a single piece. It's about it's probably analogous to, you know, capturing a capital city, like World War II ended with the race to Berlin. But in China, they play Go, which is about capturing all of the pieces, dominating the entire board, and making it so your opponent can't even move. So that's like why we see all these different Western countries kind of moving to the beat of the same drum. Is you know, there's nobody coming to rescue us. We're all in the same trap together. And you know, weaponized migration is something that they discuss in Unrestricted Warfare, which was published in 1999. It's based on leaked Chinese military documents written by two colonels, Cao Lang and Wang Shengsu. And it's basically an upgrade to The Art of War, where they talk more about, you know, they develop the elite capture in light of supranational organizations. They say the biggest of them all is the UN, and you know, we see a lot of the doctrine coming out of the UN around replacement migration and climate change, and all of these kinds of psychological operations or influence operations, essentially, to get us, you know, taking steps to destroy ourselves, so that they don't have to.
So Goldie, I think what you're learning here is Jeff is our built-in chat GPT. You just ask him a question and he'll give you all the information for sure. He can pull out references like that, just like that. But Goldie, you kind of talked about some radicalization in your previous country, Iran. And part of the reason why you came here was that, or you watched it happen from here. Can you kind of jump into that? Because if that's happening there and that's starting to happen here, we might get into the civil war that Jeff's talking about, which will be the tipping point to get us into that climax of the fourth turning.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to start off, to go back to Nico's question a little bit about, you know, Israel, Palestine, and all that stuff. I mean, this whole, you know, these things about like Jews control the world and all of that stuff. You know, when it comes to Iranians, we have been dealing with these conspiracy theories for, you know, like over 50 years now. And this goes back to the late 70s, which sort of ties into your question about the radicalization. So in the late, you know, prior to the Islamic Republic occupying Iran, Iran was a constitutional monarchy, similar to Canada. You know, people had all the freedoms that, you know, we have now in Canada. You know, obviously there were some things that, you know, were not free. So for example, communism was banned. Okay. So because communism was banned, I think rightfully so, you know, people accused the king of being a dictator. But anyway, so one of the things that the Islamists and the radicals, you know, the communists and socialists did, funded by Russia, by the way, or, you know, the USSR at the time. I see Jeff nodding, so Jeff knows. Again, resident ChatGPT, there you go. So if Jeff's nodding, then you guys know I'm on the right track here. So one of the things that USSR did at the time is they funded a lot of these various groups in the 60s and 70s in the Middle East in order to destabilize Middle Eastern countries. Why? Because the Middle East has always been sort of like it's been like think of like a chessboard, and then you have like a proxy war between the USSR and England, which has now become United States. So you know, since like the late 1800s, they've been playing chess with all these various, like, you know, countries being like the chess pieces. So one of the things that the USSR did in the 60s is they began funding and creating various terrorist groups. So for example, the PFLP and the PLO were funded and trained by the Soviets. That's why the pro-Pali movement today has a lot of communist imagery, because it stems from that communism, socialism, Marxism, anti-imperialism, anti-West ideology. Similar with the Islamic Revolution in 1979. One of the things that they, you know, one of the ways that they were able to galvanize the Islamists was to blame everything on the Jews. Prior to 1979, Iran and Israel were very close allies. You know, there were no issues, none at all. The Islamic Revolution came in on the on the Palestinian cause, basically. So the Palestinian cause was one of the fundamental pillars of the Islamic Republic, and one of the things that the communists and the Islamists allied around in order to take over the country very, very violently, I might add. And that radicalism exists to this day. Now, having said that, that radicalism never really took hold within Iran itself because, Iranians, we have a very long history, civilization, culture. So they tried to indoctrinate us, but it didn't work because we're not even inherently Muslim. Like our civilization, our own religion, Zoroastrianism, which is very similar to Christianity, that goes back thousands and thousands of years. Like our cuisine is older than Islam. Literally, the food that we cook is like thousands of years older than before Islam was created. So there's no way that this like radical jihadi occupying force can really erase that. However, what they have been able to do, and this goes sort of to your question, Nico, is this concept of political Islam and concept of political like jihad. It does not recognize the boundaries of a nation state. So even though they have taken over Iran and occupied my birth country, that's not enough for them. That's why you are seeing this influx of this jihadi Islamofascist ideology in Canada, in the United States, in Western countries. That's why you're seeing people who are blocking intersections in downtown Toronto to pray, and they yell Allahu Akbar. They burn the Canadian flag, and if you dare speak out about it, they will accuse you of Islamophobia, which is a made-up word to silence critics of jihad and political Islam. So should we care about what's going on in the Middle East? Absolutely. But the focus is not Israel. Israel is the red herring. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. They just want to be left alone, right? Like they want to be left alone. And for people who want to, I'm probably even a little, and like, listen, I'm not Jewish. I wasn't born in Israel. Like I'm fully Iranian. I have no ties to Israel. But the history of Iranians and Jews goes back thousands of years, right? So within my history, it says that Cyrus the Great, who's the founder of the Persian Empire, 3,000 years ago, freed the Jews from their Babylonian enslavement, took them back to the Promised Land, and helped them rebuild the Second Temple of Jerusalem, right? That happened thousands of years before Islam was created and, all of that stuff. So just based on my history alone, as an Iranian individual, I mean, that's Israel. However, Israel is the red herring. Everything that people accuse Israel of doing is actually Qatar. People need to look at Qatar. See, Jeff's nodding. He knows. See, oh yeah.
Don't forget Pakistan.
Qatar. Pakistan is nothing. Pakistan.
Let me chime on that. Go ahead, but I'll chime in.
I mean, sure. I mean, Pakistan gets funding from the Islamic Republic. So the two places you want to look at is Qatar and the Islamic Republic. And how do they work together? They work together through the Pars gas field that was recently, not recently, but it was found in like the early 90s. And so the gas field there, the Islamic Republic, is supposedly sanctioned. But what happens is the Islamic Republic gives permission for Qatar to take out more gas than it should from the Iranian side, and then Qatar will give billions of dollars to the Islamic Republic. So you want to talk about the money and the financing, you have to look at Qatar and the Islamic Republic. And these are radical jihadi ideologies, and they will not stop until they literally take over the world. So this destabilization you're seeing in Canada right now, it's because it's being funded with Qatari money and Islamic regime money. And anyone who tries to speak out, including me, we're labeled as Islamophobic, and they try to silence us.
All right, so Jeff,
it's a lot to take in, but I see Jeff nodding. So
yeah, Jeff, how old is the Pakistani food? Let's start right there.
I really don't know that much about it, to be honest. But what I was going to say while I was thrown in Pakistan, it was because you were saying basically everything they accuse Israel of is what they are actually guilty of. And the one thing that I see constantly, it's like I can't even post a picture commemorating the fallen, the deaths of Canadian soldiers in Afghanistan without people coming in and saying, that 9/11 was a false flag. And like I said before, these false flag narratives are basically adversarial propaganda. I'm not saying they necessarily originate with foreign regimes, but they absolutely amplify these narratives because they want us to think that we're not under attack and that it's our own governments doing it to us when they are in fact attacking us. And with Pakistan, like everybody says the Jews did 9/11, and the establishment narrative about I don't know, whatever, that it's all bunk. But when they were gearing up to bomb Fordo to take out the nuclear facilities in Iran, that was when the Pakistani bot farm started posting all this stuff about, I'm an American combat vet and I'm not letting my son go die for Israel and stuff like this. But when it comes to 9/11, if you want to know who has the most damning connections to 9/11, it's not Israel, it's Pakistan. It was actually an ISI agent, that's Pakistani intelligence, based out of the UAE in Dubai, who provided the funding for 9/11, who facilitated the wire transfer, at least for 9/11. Muhammad Atta's co-conspirator in the Hamburg cell, who went MIA, and we don't know whatever happened to him. Where did his passport turn up? Pakistan. Where was Osama bin Laden assassinated? Pakistan. Where was KLM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the KSM, sorry, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind in 9/11 itself, apprehended? Pakistan. And I think there are a couple other things. So, yeah, I mean, it is the case, I think, that totalitarians broadly, they always accuse us of what they themselves are guilty. That's hence the ironclad law of woke projection.
I agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And that's why even like with this Charlie Kirk thing, all of a sudden you see these conspiracy theories coming in about Israel did it or whatever. And it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that you can see the pattern there. Every single time something happens, people blame Israel. And I'm like, at some point you have to take a step back and recognize the pattern here. It's been the scapegoat for so long. And anyone who knows anything about the Middle East, who's lived there, who's experienced it, who understands what's going on, understands that Israel is fighting an existential war. And for many of us, I mean, they have weaponized Zionism. Zionism just means that you recognize the right for the state of Israel to exist, right? And yet somehow this tiny little bleep in the Middle East is viewed as a colonizer. However, the reality is that the Arabs are the colonizers because that area was not Arab. I mean, the same colonizers have colonized my country. I mean, I'm Iranian. I'm not Arab. I'm indigenous to Iran. And yet the Arab invasion ruined my country as well. And so now you have this flipped narrative of the colonizers claiming that they are the victims, right? And then they've latched on to this sort of colonizer occupier narrative in Canada to gain sympathy from the woke left as well, right? And so they've just twisted the narrative, and then people just fall for it. I don't know. I mean, you're going to find anti-Semitic people on both sides of the spectrum. It's how it is. But when you actually take a step back and look at what's going on, and you educate yourself about the situation, and you learn a little bit of history as well, you'll see exactly where the problem is. You'll see exactly where the biggest colonizer is. The biggest colonizer in the world right now is the Islamic Caliphate. It's the Arabs who have colonized not just the Middle East. They've colonized all the way to Bangladesh. They've colonized, in Africa, all the way to like Nigeria. Like no one ever talks about the Nigerian Shias who are massacring thousands of Christians every year. They're getting funded by Qatar and the Islamic Republic as well. Israel has nothing to do with that. And so that's why people don't talk about it. Because Israel's not involved, no one talks about it, right? So we have to keep that in mind as well. If no Jews, no news. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. And Christians are being massacred daily by Islamists funded by Qatar and the Islamic Republic. No one's speaking out about them.
It's a Russian narrative.
That's why my wife left Nigeria, was that right there.
There you go.
Yeah. She left Nigeria. Her family packed up because of the wars in the north and the slaughters. Entire schools of children are taken, or women or girls are taken, like all the time. It just never makes the news
Yeah.
here at all. Sorry, Jeff. Sorry to jump in like that.
Not at
Hold
all.
on here. I've been trying to put a point here for like 20 minutes.
Oh, sorry,
now,
Nico.
It's just I'm really tired of these type of conversation. We've heard it all. Everything that you guys said, I've heard it a million times. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm not saying I disagree with it. On the contrary, what I'm saying is, can we focus on Canada? Can we focus on North America instead of always? No, for the past 20 minutes, Canada was not mentioned once. We're really pointing
Sure.
fingers.
So you want me to tie it to Canada?
No, but hold on. There are ways to speak about what's going on in North America without having to point our fingers everywhere. Like, I have a massive problem with the influx of Muslims coming to Canada because they're trying to take over our culture. At the end of the day, I really don't care where they're from. I don't want a group of individuals with a religion that is meant to invade, be here in Canada and take over my country, the country that I grew up in. I don't want that. I really don't care about the problems that they have back home because we understand what those problems are. We understand what they do. We understand. Just read the Quran. You'll know exactly what they stand for. It doesn't work with our culture here. My point is that instead of always talking about what's going overseas, can we focus on what's happening here and address that problem like what we saw in Toronto today? Like we saw two-tier policing today in Toronto. Like I speak about this all the time, how Muslims are capable of blocking streets like Yonge and Bloor in Toronto. They can block all the streets here in Montreal, all the parks that we have, they take over whenever they want. They go on parking lots of the biggest church in Canada, that is the Notre Dame Basilique here in Montreal. No problem whatsoever. If I were to do that with a bunch of my Christian friends, we'd get arrested. There's been at least 5 pastors in the past 5 years that have been arrested, gone to jail, and spent thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars defending themselves in court. My point is that we know what's going on in other countries. I think we're all aware of this. At least everybody on this panel and most of the people in the comments, I don't think this is news what we're talking about, but I'm tired of talking about that. I want to concentrate on what can we do right now in Canada. This is what matters to me. What can we do here to prevent the decay further of Canada without having to focus all of our attention on the Middle East or in Ukraine or in Russia, because I couldn't give two flying fuck about what's going on over there. I want us to stop being involved. I don't care that it's Israel. I don't care that it's Palestine. I don't care that it's Ukraine. I don't care that it's Russia. Stop funding anything that's going on over there. Focus on Canadians. Focus on North America. Is that not a possibility anymore? Or am I naive to believe that we can put other people's problems aside and focus on our own problems here?
A little
Nico,
bit.
the issue.
So I'll go with you, Goldie, in a second. I just want to talk to Nico for a second.
Okay.
What Goldie and Jeff are doing, though, is kind of showing you where this is coming from and how it's going to impact us here. We can't fight the problem in Canada if we don't know what the problem is historically and what it's done other places. I think that's their points right now. So I think we're at the point now where we're talking about how to fight the problem here. So I think we're getting to where you want to be, which is how do we fix Canada, North America. But we need to understand a little bit of the history of how it actually destroyed countries like Iran.
And I agree with
You
you
have to follow the money. You
all
have
I'm
to
saying
follow
is
the
that
money.
hold on, Goldie. All I'm saying is that all that we talked about here, we all agree to a certain extent.
I didn't know most
We
of it.
already really,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
something
learning.
because that's something I talk about all the time. This is something, even in the comments, you can see that everybody seems to have an opinion, at least on either side. Whatever the opinion is, we can all have an understanding of what's going on. But what I never hear anywhere, which is what I try to focus on, what are the realities here that I can change? Because as much as I can explain that to people, people don't care about history. Half the books behind me are history. People don't care. People just don't care. They want to know how it impacts them directly. How is it going to change their lives on a daily basis? So you need to show them what the problem is here, because they don't even want to believe what's going on in the UK. They don't want to believe that today there was 1 million people, estimated over 1 million people walked for a rally that Tommy Robinson organized against mass immigration. 1 million UK people were in the streets today. to protest because they had enough of what's going on. So this is what I want to see here. We tried to have it here in Toronto, but they got kicked out of the park they were supposed to be at and ended up being in the street somewhere. So this is my point. What can we do, understanding what we know here? What can we do in Canada to make it better, or is it too late? Because that's the question I literally ask myself every single day. I look at my son and I'm like, okay, can I stay in Canada? Do I have to move to the US, or is the US cooked too? Do I need to move to South America where nobody cares about South America, so nobody's going to come attack me over there? Or is there still a chance to save Canada here?
Don't go to South
estimated
America
was 1 million by
because South
Tommy
America
Robinson.
is full of
Sorry,
Islamists.
Gold, you're next. Estimated by Tommy Robinson to be 1 million people, 110,000 by the officials. But go ahead, Goldie.
I was going to say, don't go to South America because South America is full of Islamists, so you don't want to go there. They're Muslim Brother infiltrated. But you know, to answer your question, what happened today at Christie Pitts is a perfect example of you have one group which is organic grassroots, no funding, no money, right? That was the Canadian Patriots, and then on the other hand, you have a very well organized, radical leftist Islamist group that's getting funding, right? It's through the unions, it's through organizations or NGOs, some of them being funded by government, some being funded by outside sources. So if you want to address the problem in Canada, you have to follow the money and cut the funding. You have to cut the funding, and the funding is coming from outside of Canada. So the funding is coming from the Islamic Republic and Qatar. So you want to address the problem in Canada, you got to cut the funding. You also have to advocate to list certain groups, put certain groups on the terror list. So for example, the Iranian community, we advocated very hard for 7 years. After 7 years, we were able to convince the Canadian government, Justin Trudeau, to put the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on Canada's terror list, right? That was a huge first step. It took us 7 years to do that. And the only reason that Justin Trudeau did it is because there was a by-election happening, and so it just randomly happened. He thought he would win the Jewish vote, but he lost the by-election anyway. But that was a good first step. And now, however, having done that, there are still at least 700 agents of the Islamic Republic who are in Canada, who are funneling money through real estate or Bitcoin or whatever. And when they do their dirty work in Canada, they don't necessarily hire Iranians or Islamists or whatever. They will hire gangs. So they've hired Hell's Angels. They've hired like criminal organizations as well. So you know, one of the things that Canadians we can do is we can start rallying and lobbying to list certain organizations as terrorist groups. So for example, the Muslim Brotherhood would be an excellent one to list as a terror organization. The United States right now, I think it was either Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio recently announced that they're moving forward to put the Muslim Brotherhood on the terror list in the United States. That's what we should be focusing on in Canada. I guarantee you there's going to be a huge pushback against that behind the scenes because there are certain groups and organizations in Canada who are destabilizing our country with foreign funding from the Muslim Brotherhood. They are the ones who are out there justifying why it's okay to block the streets of Toronto and yell Allahu Akbar. They are the ones out there who are justifying why it's okay to go in front of a church and you know, pray namaz or whatever it is they do, right? Why? Because they are pushing and taking advantage of the freedoms that we have in Canada that they do not have in their own terrorist countries back home, right? They are taking advantage of freedom of religion, freedom of association, freedom of expression to push the boundaries of jihad. And Canadians need to wake up to that. And we as a society need to stop being afraid of calling out this nonsense. Because let me tell you something, these mass prayers in the streets, they're banned in Saudi Arabia, and they're banned in the UAE, and they're banned in certain other Muslim countries. Because there's a difference between, you know, practicing your religion and political jihad. And Middle Eastern countries, we know the difference between political jihad and just, you know, practicing your faith in a mosque or whatever. And right now, Canada has become the garbage bin for radical terrorism. So all those radical terrorists from Pakistan and, you know, even Iran, my own country, and like, you know, all these other places in the Middle East, Lebanon, Gaza, like, I don't know, wherever, right? they can't be extreme in their own countries, so they come to Canada. Why? Because you guys, you don't know the difference between regular Islam and political jihad. So they'll do whatever they want, and if you try to say a word, they'll go, "Oh, Islamophobia, Islamophobia." That's the problem. Canada has become the garbage bin for radical terrorism. I still remember during the 12-day conflict between Israel and the Islamic Republic, you didn't see Iranians out there. I wasn't out there in the streets of Canada protesting or anything. What you did see were the pro-Hamas Arabic jihadis and the Pakistanis out there in the streets waving the flag of the Islamic Republic, which is on the Canadian terror list. And yet we have people in Canada waving that terrorist flag and holding a picture of Khamenei, who's the supreme dictator of the Islamic Republic, right, who wants to see the West destroyed. We have people in Canada holding up his picture, waving it around because freedom of association, and no one did or said anything. It was, as an Iranian, it was horrifying to see non-Iranian people holding the picture of someone that I consider to be the modern day Hitler. But that's where we're at. So we need to speak out about it, and we need to recognize where this is coming from. So we want to fix Canada. The first thing we have to do is recognize that Canada will not be fixed until we acknowledge that this terrorism problem is coming from someplace that, even though we might think it's 3,000 miles away, those terrorists are 3 miles away in our own backyard, and we need to wake up to that.
Okay, so
Before Jeff goes, can I just rephrase my question? Because I don't think I'm being clear here. So what do we do? Because for the past 5 years, I've been trying to wake up the average Canadian and get them involved in what we're talking about right now. So how do we do that? Because condemning and putting people on terror groups, unfortunately for the average Canadian, they don't care about that. They don't understand what it means, and it doesn't speak to them whatsoever. The reason my content is so effective is I speak to the person behind the phone, behind the laptop. I want that person to get involved. However that might be, depending on the problem that we're talking about, this is always my goal. So how do we get the average Canadian to get involved, to wake up, to get involved to what the problem is? And, you were talking about public prayers. It's a show of force, plain and simple. Don't even call it political jihadists, because they don't even understand what that means. It's a show of force. We have freedom of religion. They take advantage of it, and they say, you know what? Screw you. We don't care that there's 100 mosques around Montreal. We're still going to invade your public spaces and show you that you won't do anything. This is what it's about. We all agree on that. I think. At least I'm not going to speak to you guys, but I think most of us agree on that. So how do we explain that to the average Canadian to say that Christians are not allowed to do this? What happened today in Toronto shows that there's a two-tier policing in Canada. I don't think it could have been any clearer than what happened today in Toronto. Canadians standing up for Canada, saying Canada first, are being kicked out of the park they were supposed to be at because there's a few protesters that show up, and the police, from the videos I've seen, were protecting the counter protester. I know who organized them, or who organized the protests, and I'm just waiting for him to confirm everything that I've seen to see if I'm right about what I'm saying right now. But those are what I've seen from the video. So what can we do to wake up the average Canadian to get involved in this? And keep in mind, the average Canadian is not political.
So I was about to throw it to Jeff on this one, because like Charlie said in that video, is Canada's too polite, nice, and welcoming. So do we have to do the opposite of that? Do we have to wake up and fight back a bit, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that we're going to be waking anybody up unless we alert them to the threat. These are foreign threats. We're under attack. It's World War III. We're being invaded. It's not what it looked like, the last time we went through one of these fourth turnings. But yeah, I mean, and that's what unrestricted warfare is all about. It's about, producing the same outcomes that conventional warfare would, without actually engaging in kinetic warfare. Drug warfare is mentioned in there as well, by the way. That's the fentanyl stuff. Yeah, I mean, we need... You can't solve a problem. Well, I mean, maybe you can if you get lucky, but the best way to solve a problem is to first understand it. And we're not even going to get that far if we won't at least identify the problems. You know, like the Muslim Brotherhood, like you know, the like Hamas, like the Chinese Communist Party, and you know, we started this conversation talking about radicalism, the stuff that's happening here, and I tied that back to foreign powers because it's part of an influence campaign. Whether we're talking about, you know, what people are calling the woke right, I don't really think that's a thing, but or the woke left. I mean, these are influence campaigns that originate with foreign powers, and so, you know, that's why I kind of take you around the mulberry bush and explain a little bit about, you know, how Go works and how you know, unrestricted warfare works, because these are the threats. And most Canadians don't even understand that they're under threat when you see the political Islamists taken to the streets to put on a show of force. They don't know that that's a show of force. We have to explain that to them, and I wouldn't know how to do that. I wouldn't really understand that if I didn't look at what they had done in other countries first. And the you know, we were talking about the colonialist narrative there a little while ago, and I just wanted to throw in that that is a Russian narrative. That's where it originates. And they've been using it to destabilize Western colonies all over the Middle East and Africa since the end of the Second World War. They've been highly successful at driving Westerners out, at radicalizing the indigenous populations in those areas against Westerners. And they're doing the same damn thing here, calling us the colonizers. And, you know, the Black Lives Matter didn't really take hold here like it did in the United States. Again, same kind of divisive narrative, but didn't really take hold here initially like it did in the United States, maybe in the aftermath of the overdose of George Floyd. But before that, they were trying to get them in here. When that didn't work, they moved to the indigenous communities, and we got idle no more. And that's when you see the flaming debris on the railroad tracks, and people aren't getting arrested, just like the right people were not getting arrested today. And that is what I think is a reflection of a communist idea called liberating tolerance. We call it repressive tolerance over here on the right. And it was developed by a guy named Herbert Marcuse, but I mean, he's a German Jew. So that's again another country that I would have to talk about to be able to explain that to you. This is what's happening. It's a communist coup. It's more like an Islamist coup in light of intersectional Marxism and the unholy alliance that has existed between the communists and the Islamists for quite a long time. And just on the Middle East, Goldie, if you're not familiar with Haj Amin al-Husseini, check him out. He was kind of the guy who radicalized the Sunni side, contemporary of Hitler, and plausibly first suggested the final solution to him.
He was like was he the Grand Mufti guy in the photos
right.
of Hitler?
Yeah. He was the Grand Mufti of
course,
Jerusalem.
it goes back to like the whole, of course, that area.
It's basically the same war, all the same kind of Axis and Allied powers, little bit different, but it's Orwell's 1984. That's what's happening. Is, you know, we were always at war with Eurasia, we were always at war with East Asia, and what are they squabbling over? It's all these disputed territories in the Middle East and Africa. And that's we've been trying to ally with the Sunni side, and that's been a complete disaster because of radical Islamic. I mean, we helped them repel the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and then the scorpion stung the frog and committed 9/11. So, you know, that's been a complete disaster. And then people will say that, you know, that this was created by the CIA. No, they tried to ally with them. They were radicalized well before that, starting with Muhammad, really, if we're going to be frank about it. And, you know, and Haj Amin al-Husseini helped that along and lead up to the Second World War. And the Sunni side has been allied with the Russians for the longest time. So, you know, that's kind of the divide there. And this is where a lot of these narratives come from. And the radicalization that we're facing here originate over there. And a lot of the stormtroopers, essentially, that they're sending in here, this is why they hate us. It's because of these kind of propaganda campaigns and the radicalization that took place over there already.
I think we also need to ask her, can I just add something really quickly to that, to what Jeff was saying? With the radicalization happening here, we also need to ask ourselves, why is it that Mark Carney felt the need to go into, to speak at an event that's affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood and to go up there and say Muslim values or Canadian values?
Yeah.
He's never said that about any other religion. I've never heard it. but for some reason he felt the need to say that. And so you have to ask yourselves, where is that coming from? Who is funding that? And who is, like, Mark Carney is obviously kissing the ring. Whose ring is he kissing for him to go up there and say Muslim values are Canadian values, when there are thousands, if not millions of us who have escaped the Middle East, especially for the reason that we do not want to live in a Muslim country with Muslim values, because those values don't align with our values. Now, I'm not saying like I have an issue with it. And, whatever you want to believe, that's your imperative. Whatever, like, I support freedom of religion, whatever you want to believe, do not shove it in my face. Especially when my parents came to a Judeo-Christian country, it is horrifying for me to then hear the leader of the country just out of the blue say Muslim values are Canadian values. Well, what values are you referring to? Are you referring to the values where it's okay to marry a 9-year-old girl? Right? So where is this coming from, and who is funding this? That's what we need to look at. And that funding, I guarantee you, is not coming from inside of Canada. The funding for this is coming from outside of Canada. So we need to follow the money. If we want to fix the radicalization problem in Canada, just look at Mark Carney and who is offering him money for him to go up there and say Muslim values are Canadian values, because he certainly wants their votes, because their votes and their agenda is what's pushing the country right now.
It's a fifth column.
Yeah. So, Jeff, I wanted to kind of bring it back to kind of where Nico was headed with this, which is solutions and how do we fight back on this. But one more thing, Nico, I want to kind of lay down as a foundation to kind of answer that, because I think what we're doing right now, having this show, is a part of that solution. Fifth gen warfare, Jeff, because it appears we're in that one. This is an information warfare. It's not like we have people digging in trenches and it's a traditional war. The war is now information. And we're like guerrillas in that particular type of warfare, because we're out here trying to get that information out to people, open up minds, wake up people. So we're working at that. Can you kind of, just for some of my own benefit, explain what a fifth gen warfare is? And is stuff like what we're doing right now helpful in a guerrilla type of way of fighting that?
So fifth gen warfare is like a fancy new fandangled term for a lot of stuff that's been around since time immemorial. Sun Tzu said that all war is based on deception. And other leaders have said very similar things. I think even Mossad says, through deception, we wage war, or something like that. But this is a very common theme. Sun Tzu said attack by stratagem. That was chapter 3 in The Art of War. And a stratagem is a plan to deceive the enemy. So it's not really new. I guess I just kind of have a bit of I'm a little bit annoyed with all the fifth gen warfare stuff. But but in terms of solutions, well, I would. There's a quote that I take from Unrestricted Warfare, where they say the battle space is everywhere. And when the battle space is everywhere, we are all soldiers. So in that sense, it's a lot like you said, Jason, like it's ideological guerrilla warfare. That's what we need to be thinking in terms of, especially like we're a really small nation. We need to think in terms of asymmetric warfare, but we need to arm people with the tools to engage in this ideological battle space. And they don't have them. If they don't even know that taking over the streets for prayers is an act of intimidation, an act of dominance, then they're very ill equipped to engage in this ideological battle space. I mean, longer term, what really needs to happen is we got to bring philosophy back into our schools, or we haven't really had that, at least since the end of the Second World War. But in the current conception of like schoolroom, classroom, but we tell people what to think. We don't really teach them how to think. And if they just had like a stronger epistemology, it's nothing you really couldn't teach to a middle schooler. There's no reason to make people wait until they get to first year university to take a basic critical thinking course. That's a first year philosophy course. You could teach that to a middle schooler. This is a lot of what I do, and how I come to my conclusions is just by applying principles that were developed even thousands of years ago in terms of critical thinking and how to guide your thinking and get to the truth. What you'll see on the other side is sophistry. I mean, these were the enemies of Socrates, and this is the thing that's been happening since the dawn of the human species. But philosophy is essentially it was developed by our ancestors to equip us to resist the totalitarian impulse. And so we see a lot of this sophistry coming from the other side, where there's everything from like the ad hominem attacks, false cause, logical fallacy. If you can memorize, just start with 5. If you can get to 10, like logical fallacies, you'll destroy any Marxist in a debate, no problem. And that's what Charlie Kirk did. He engaged in philosophy. That's what Socrates did. Is he went down into the market and he asked people questions and expected them to justify their answers. And he may have been mocking them, even just from my read of the apology in the Republic, but he pissed them off enough to make them execute him anyway. So I think he might have been mocking them a little bit. So yeah, mockery, some critical thinking. These are the tools that have worked in the past. If we look back on history, so. We got to get back to being the West, get back to our basic principles. We're the people of the Enlightenment, the people of philosophy, and we got to get back to those core principles that made us so great in the first place.
So Nico, is that what we're doing here by trying to reach out to people? And what do you think about getting into the universities, high schools, and stuff like that to bring some more of these messages?
We need to. We absolutely 100,000,000% need to do this. We need people to do what Charlie Kirk did 100% at all level of education. Because right now, I can tell you my son's never going to touch those indoctrination centers. He's going to be homeschooled. I will do, if I have to work 24 hours a day to make sure that happens, this is what I'm going to do. That kid is not touching those indoctrination centers. No way in hell. But everything that Jeff said, I agree with, but those are medium to long-term solutions. Unfortunately, in order to get to what Jeff is talking about, we need people in power that actually have the balls to do the shit that needs to get done in order to get there. And I don't see it. Carney's not going to do it. Pierre Poilievre's not going to do it. He's as weak as Carney is, and he's as much of a liberal as Carney is. So who do we have? Who do we have right now in Canada that has the balls to speak for the people? That's somebody from the people that's ready to speak for the people, that can get backing. Because right now, starting a party in Canada is literally impossible. You want to go and present yourself for the Conservative Party because you believe in conservative values, it's going to cost you something like 200 grand or 250 grand to just put your candidature in the mix. So ain't going to happen for the average Canadian out there that's just a regular commoner. So if our government don't care about us, and I don't care, it's a uniparty in Canada. We don't have a real divide. So what are we supposed to do as just Canadians like me, for example, that speaks about politics every day, that don't want to be in politics? I don't want to run in politics. I really don't want to. I'm not interested in that at all. Unfortunately, it needs guys like us right here, but I'm not interested in that. I don't want to do that because I understand what it takes and I don't want to. So what are we supposed to do as Canadians that look up to our leaders? I'm too conservative for the conservative because they're too liberal for me. And then my co-host that I host the Political Orphans with every day, the liberals are too woke for him. So both the two of us sit on two different sides of the middle, and we're like, hey, bro, do you have a party that represents you? I don't, bro. So what are we supposed to do? Because there's no way for me to start my own political party. Look at what the PPC's tried. And it's obviously failing. They're changing the rules to make sure that Maxime Bernier is not on a podium to debate them during election time. So right there, it's corrupt as hell. They keep on changing the goalposts so that no new party can come in order to challenge the status quo. What are we supposed to do as Canadians if we don't trust our leaders that they're going to do the right thing?
Well, I can speak for Alberta as we stop calling ourselves Canadians and we focus on a divorce and we head in that direction. I know Quebec is starting to head in that direction as well.
So basically, I need to move to Alberta, say screw the rest of Canada, move to Alberta, and make sure they get independence. Basically, that's what you're saying.
Well, you can keep working on whatever you need to work on, but your question could also be changed in how do you fix a bad marriage, like a really bad marriage, and sometimes you just can't. I just want to bring one thing to your attention there, Nico. I don't know if you know this, but the guy that's running the Forever Canada campaign here in Alberta, his name is Thomas Lusakic or something like that. Another thing about this guy that you should understand is he's the one pushing halal mortgages in Alberta as well. So why does he want Canada to stay together with Alberta and then focus on halal mortgages as well, which doesn't seem to be, very Albertan, quite frankly. And but to answer your question, okay, if you're not ready for the medium to long-term solution, which Jeff is laying out, and a quick solution is, well, the breakup of Canada would be a quick solution. That could start happening in 2026, 2027 with Quebec, and let the dominoes fall where they may. And if you really want change in Canada, you can't pray for it or ask someone to step up, because as you laid out, there is no political solution. It's going to be the people solution. So the breakup of Canada is the quicker answer to, I think, what you're trying to suggest there. Jeff, I think you were trying to jump in after Nico. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. In terms of like we do have to get involved, and since I'm referencing all the classics, Plato said that the price of apathy toward public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. I don't want to run for office. I don't really dream of being a politician. I just kind of wanted to play my guitar and ride my motorcycle after I retired from the military, and I would have been good, man. I was going to go back down to Florida, go chase after my old girlfriend down there. I'll never tell which one, of course, but it was definitely a serious consideration. Anyway, but I came back to Cape Breton, the home of my heart, to dig my boots into the land that I love and make my final stand against global tyranny. So this is what it looks like. I just kind of go wherever the key battle space happens to be. It kind of shifts around a little bit. I was in the protest scene and the culture wars for quite a while. So I did all that in the podcasting, and then kind of shifted into the legal battle space as a lot of my, mask violations came due, and I didn't get any of all those charges were withdrawn. But then there was, the Convoy, Rolling Thunder, James Talk, 1 Million March for Children, run for office in my home riding. So just kind of wherever the battle space is, that's where you'll find me. And if it's not running for office, then you can support a political candidate for a run. And before we get to the next election, start making some connections with the politicians that are in there now. There are a few that aren't totally spineless, and we just had an election where we had somebody like Matt Strauss get up on the floor of the Commons and say that COVID was full communism. So he seems like the kind of guy, if you can convince him of something, then he wouldn't mind saying it on the floor of House of the Commons. And there are others Andrew Lawton. He's, a little more tepid, I guess, but I think he's probably pretty solid and on our side. And and there are a few others. So, we can find those ways in there. I think it's really just a question of kind of finding where the cracks are and making our way in there. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a big ship. It's not going to turn on a dime. It's more like, we need to think in terms of warfare, and wars aren't won in a single battle, but in the aggregate over time, if we're strategic and we kind of rack up the wins as we go, then we'll gradually kind of turn that ship back on course. So I think we're looking at 2030 before things really start to ease up. But the mindset now should be more about mitigating the damage between now and then. And once we get a little further into the 2030s, Russia and China are going to collapse anyway. They're going to come under a population crisis because of their demographics. The Russian elites have clearly decided that Russia is going out Russian, and China's not real big on immigration either. So they have a lot of problems because of one-child policy, with too many men and not enough women and not enough kids. Everybody's in the same situation, actually. This is another thing about the fourth turning, is the population collapse. The thing that keeps the West going is we always allowed immigration. So anyway, I think that I don't like to hope for the collapse of these countries, because we're probably looking at famine and all kinds of humanitarian crises. But it's better than the globe falling to global tyranny. So it's the less harmful of the two options, therefore the good one. But anyway, yeah, here's hoping into the 2030s. I think we're looking at something really good. And right now, like I said, it's more about just sort of weathering the storm.
Okay, so Goldie, you actually had a seat in the legislature, no, the parliament, member.
Yeah, in Ontario, yeah.
Yeah. And you have two who ran for the federal election, Jeff and I, and then you have one who says he's not going to be a politician. But you were a politician. So what are the chances that politicians, or a good one, is a way forward? Because you were booted just for having, sound opinions.
I was booted because the National Council of Canadian Muslims did not like the fact that I was saying that it's not normal behavior to go out in public and block streets and pray and yell Allahu Akbar. And they accused me of Islamophobia. They also accused me of Islamophobia for the crime of speaking with Tommy Robinson, just because Tommy Robinson wanted to learn more about my advocacy on Iran, because Tommy recognized that his struggle in Britain right now is exactly what Iranians went through in 1979 and what it is we're fighting for right now, right? So, like, the Iranian people, and myself included in that, is, we're fighting to overthrow the Islamic regime, which ruined our country in 1979. But a lot of what led up to that Islamic revolution is what's happening in Western countries, right? And so, because Tommy is so outspoken, the National Council of Canadian Muslims did not like the fact that I simply spoke with him about the history of Iran, and I was accused of Islamophobia for that. This is how scared these organizations are of someone learning the truth and speaking the truth. So I think the chances of getting a politician to speak out on this is going to be very slim, because politicians care more about votes than they do about the right thing. That's just sort of what I've seen. And, I was a politician for 7 years. I could have very easily kept my mouth shut and said nothing and just gone about my daily life. I would have been reelected. Carleton is, provincially, it has been conservative since before Canada was even created, right? So even at times when it was liberal federally, it was always conservative provincially. So I was literally in one of the safest seats in Ontario. And I gave that up because I wanted to speak out for Canada and, of course, for Iran as well, because there's an intersectionality there. But anyways, so I think the chances of a politician speaking out at this point is not necessarily as high. But what we can do, and one thing that I am starting to do, is I'm starting to educate people, because if you want politicians to change the way they think, you have to educate people, and you need that critical mass of people who are going to reach out to their politicians. Because right now, there are certain lobby groups like the National Council of Canadian Muslims and the Muslim Action Vote, or I don't know, whatever. They are very mobilized. They have a lot of funding. And those email campaigns, they scare politicians. You get an email campaign, the politician is scared, because all they're thinking about is, am I going to be reelected in 4 years? Are they going to come after me and accuse me of Islamophobia? Because that is a very, very big thing, unfortunately, because they've weaponized that. So the way that I see fighting back, for me personally, is to start educating people, because unless and until Canadians know what the problem is, they will not be able to fight back against it. Jeff said very, very clearly, the perfect example. Canadians don't necessarily know that blocking the roads and praying and yelling Allahu Akbar is a sign of dominance, is a show of force. We need to educate Canadians on this. We need to tell them that this is not normal behavior and compare it to behavior in the Middle East and say, this is normal. This is jihad. This is okay. This is corrupting Canadian society. And so that's sort of where I'm starting. And, that's what I'm going to be continuing to work on. And I'm hoping to, I've been doing a lot of online stuff. I'm hoping I can sort of take it to in person, various places across the country, but that education component is so important. Once people are educated, then they can start emailing their politicians and countering the political jihad that's been going on behind the scenes with these various groups in Canada that are funded with foreign money.
I
So
just
hope we
want
see
to
you on the
add to
show
some.
more. Yeah, go ahead, Nico. Sorry.
All I was going to add earlier is that I just want to clarify that saying I don't want to run doesn't mean I won't. It simply means that I don't
know.
want to. But
I
at the
didn't want to
same
run either,
time,
neither did
Oh,
Jeff,
that's
but we
either.
did.
but at the same time, I strongly believe that public service is supposed to cost you something. It's called service, as in the Christian value of servicing others, of serving others, helping others at your own. It's going to cost you something, right? I don't know how else to simply put it. So I just want to make sure. It doesn't mean I won't. I just really don't want to. I really, really don't want to.
And it definitely does cost you something. Jeff and I can attest to that, and so does Goldie.
Hair,
It does cost
but
you
I have none to
Hair.
lose. So I'm good. I should be fine.
Well, it looks like we're about to wrap up here, Nico. So
Yeah,
there's no
man.
magic bullet on this one to fix everything. But the show itself is one of the pieces of, I think, helping.
Yep.
And the assassination of Charlie Kirk, like we talked about at the beginning, is separating the left. They're falling apart.
Mhm.
So maybe the destruction of the radical left is a good thing at this point, and we can watch that come down. As Jeff laid out a few times, we're getting to that climax of the fourth turning. We're going to have some tough years, but 2030, things will start turning around. And maybe one of the things that we can tell everybody to do is just get yourself educated. Keep watching shows like this. Follow Goldie, follow Jeff, follow Nico. And Goldie, I hope you come back again, because I learned a lot tonight from you. And that's exactly what I hope a lot of people did as well. So yeah, Nico, I'll go throw it to you if you want to wrap it up.
You seem to be on a go, bro. Go for it.
I think we're there, though, because that's the whole purpose. This is something you and I talked about, was to try and bring people together with very vastly different opinions and information at this stage. So I think we got to keep going with Source One. I really love our Chat GPT, Jeff. I hope you don't take offense to that. You're just so full of information.
He
And
does
Goldie,
look like
you're a
AI. You're right. He looks like AI.
and no, I don't know if he's like AI, because we could do better than that. I'm sorry, Jeff. But Goldie is also a great addition, because I really learned a lot from her. She got the experience of 7 years and took the shot and knew what she could do. And Goldie, it's 100% true. If you want to play along, you could be in there pretty easy. I recognize that too. And no, I swim upstream. I don't play along. I do what I think is right, and that is a limiter. That's one of the sacrifices you have to make when you get into this type of space. But Goldie, I'm glad you came back. Sorry, it started off as a rocky start, but
Listen, it's okay. You know what? I'm okay with, like, you know, if I'm not even okay, like, I will tolerate conspiracy theories, but as soon as someone's like, oh, you're a Zionist in that term, then that immediately clicked for me. I'm like, okay, this is a crazy person. There's two types of people I don't debate. I don't debate terrorists. Okay, so if someone comes up here and they want to tell me about how Muhammad is the perfect person, and he rode, he was riding on like a flying donkey with the face of a woman and went to Jerusalem, and they actually believe that because that's in the Quran. I'm not debating that kind of person. I'm also not going to debate someone who uses Zionism as like an insult, because to me that just shows that they have no concept of reality, and there's just no point in speaking with that. So I will never silence someone, but if someone wants to come and speak, I just remove myself from the situation, because there's just no point in dealing with those sorts of people. It's just, they're so far down the rabbit hole, and like that level of anti-Semitism, it just, that's part of the problem. That's where the dehumanization comes from. Whether the dehumanization is for the us, where we're accused of being Nazis or fascists or whatever, or in this case, whether it's like, oh, you're a Zionist, right? And then that level of dehumanization, I just don't deal with that. I just disengage from that level of conversation. But no, I'm happy to come back, and again, I'll debate different perspectives and viewpoints, but the person has to be sane and just not like a crazy conspiracy theorist and think that Jews control the world, because that's just very weird.
I have debated those guys.
Oh,
I mean,
you
they don't
have
debate.
more patience than me.
Yeah, I subjected myself to a 6-hour struggle session with those wokesters.
And that was
whole-
something that Charlie did a lot of too. debating
Mhm.
and having those open conversations as well. So Nico, I think you're right. Somebody's got to pick up that microphone and keep going. Maybe there's a million Charlies now, and that is a way forward. Talking, because when we stop talking, we turn to violence, and that's what Charlie also
Mhm.
tried to remind everybody. But
Amen
Nico,
to
thank
that.
you very much again for putting space together. I think you're doing something big here. Jeff, thanks again for making time. It's late for you. And
This
Goldie,
one's your
it's really
sweet
nice.
Charlie shirt, by the way. That's
you?
your sweet Charlie. I meant to say that when we started, but I put my.
That's not the same. That's
I
not
know,
the
but I thought
same.
it
That's
was
for
appropriate. I was
that's
like-
for Charlie Hebdo that happened
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
France when they did a caricature of Allah and they
Yeah.
just like fucking bombed the place.
Yeah, I
but
know.
well played. I
but
love
it
the
was
little
for
French tone
expression.
about it.
It was
yeah.
for
Oh,
expression.
on the
For
shirt.
expression.
On the shirt, Jeff.
So, hey,
But thank you very much, everybody. You have yourself a wonderful night. Tune in next Saturday, same time, 7 p.m. Mountain for me, 9 p.m. Eastern for Nico and rest of Canada, basically, as we continue to have these conversations. It's a good one. They get heated, they get frustrating, and they get loud on purpose because we definitely want to have an open space and have conversations. So, Goldie, thank you so much. Also to Mark, who was here earlier. Jeff, you have yourself a wonderful day. And Nico, you take care, my friend. We'll talk after if you guys want to stick around. But
Yep.
have a good night, everybody.